Well, listen, I think that the biggest phenomenon in the Western world over the last decade or two has been the total betrayal of the working class.
It's the same thing. Tell us.
Exactly the same thing,
How
because
so?
it's being used as a pretext to concentrate money and power in the hands of the state. It is just the latest of the many pretexts that are used. The same phenomenon, because here again, what happened? A corporate elite was able to drive down wages and drive up rent.
What makes this conversation so powerful is that it isn't just about Canada. It's about what a lot of people across the Western world feel in their gut right now. That people who actually build, fix, drive, keep society moving are getting pushed further and further to the bottom, while politically connected insiders keep gaining more power. And once he gets into government control, speech, energy, housing, and what happened to truckers, you'll start to see the big argument he's making here. Listen to how he connects all of it.
Well, listen, I think that the biggest phenomenon in the Western world over the last decade or two has been the total betrayal of the working class, the people who make stuff, fix stuff, move stuff, and build stuff, the younger people who are entering the job market and trying to start a life, who have seen their opportunities absolutely destroyed by massive government interventions that have concentrated wealth among a very small group of well-connected insiders. And that, I think, has caused enormous amounts of political instability. It has caused a resurgence of both socialism and of protectionism. And now is a time, I think, for us to push back against that betrayal and give people back control of their lives. And that is true right across the Western world. It's especially true in Canada. We need to restore home ownership, bring back sound money, allow people to actually benefit from their hard work, and basically restore meritocracy, which was the very principle, the driving principle of Western economics for 2.5 centuries. So I think that's really the big question of whether or not the Western world is going to reinstate meritocratic free enterprise, or whether it's going to continue to concentrate undeserved benefits through state capitalism and big government.
Well, and the cultural level as well, a lot of things seem to have happened. I mean, you talk about free enterprise, but what about just people being free to speak their mind, to make their own decisions? One of the things that we were frankly truly horrified by, even given that COVID restrictions in this country were pretty stringent, is some of the things that happened, people who were protesting against things in Canada having their bank accounts taken away. We had supporters of our show writing in going like, please, can you cover this? Is there something about Canada that make, the Canadian psyche that made you guys more susceptible to this? Is it just you had a particular leader at that time who was more authoritative? Like, what was that about?
It was the government itself. It wasn't broadly the people. The truckers in question, they were just looking to be heard. Most of these people had never protested anything in their lives. Through the early COVID days, they were considered the heroes because they were literally driving on lonely highways across international borders, often for weeks away from their families in total isolation, bringing us the things to our homes that we could not live without. And then when the time came for them to be heard, the government robbed them of their liberties. And by the way, this is no longer a controversial view. I think it's the federal court now has ruled that the use of the Emergency Act to crack down on the protest was a violation of Canada's Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So it has even been accepted by the judiciary that was wrong. And it's a reminder of why we need to, the government has to treat itself as the servant and not the master. And we need to give a bigger voice to the working people of our country who, in this case, were simply looking for the right to speak, to the freedom of mobility and bodily autonomy.
And this is where the conversation stops being theoretical, because once you get into freezing bank accounts, crushing protesters, and then later having the courts say that government overreached, you're no longer talking about some abstract political disagreement. You're talking about what happens when a government decides that ordinary people can be treated like a threat just for refusing to fall in line. And that's why this still hits such a nerve with people, not just in Canada, but everywhere. A lot of working people heard the message loud and clear. You were essential when they needed you, and you were disposal when you spoke up.
And you say, it wasn't the people, but we have to be honest, Pierre. I mean, Trudeau did get reelected.
Not after that. No, he was basically, he had to leave office, extremely unpopular. So he did not get reelected after the use of the Emergency Act against the truckers.
Oh, right, but
They
he
got fact
did.
checked,
Yeah.
But I was saying that he did get reelected shortly after the COVID measures and everything like that. So it's not as if it was totally against the will of the people, is my point.
Yeah, I wouldn't attribute it to that. I think the Canadian people value their freedoms, and I was very outspoken in favor of individual freedom, not just on the issue of the pandemic, but more broadly on economics, and won a lot of support, so much so that the Liberal Party later then claimed that it was going to adopt many of my policies. So I think the agenda of giving people more freedom, economic freedom through lower taxes, unlocking home ownership and energy and resource development, or personal freedom by letting people speak their minds and have freedom of speech, even when it's politically incorrect. I actually think that agenda is very popular in Canada and around the world, and that's why I've stayed true to it.
Because it's been...
Well, that's not why I've stayed true to it. It's one of it makes it easier for me to stay true to it. Sorry.
Fair enough. But
yeah.
It's been very disheartening and actually quite upsetting to watch what Canada has become and the trajectory it's gone on, because as somebody who's from the UK, I've seen the exact same trajectory we're on. And I look at Europe and the same thing is happening in Europe. And you're kind of thinking to yourself, why is this? Why are we on this trajectory when, to even the most basic of laymen, it seems like we're heading on a path of self-destruction?
If you look at it, what it really comes down to is this. It's freedom or force. There's a movement to concentrate power, control, money in the hands of bureaucrats, technocrats, and other insiders using the state as their mechanism. And that has led to the mass impoverishment of the people across the Western world and an enormous gap between rich and poor. By the way, this is not happening because of free enterprise. It's happening because of the massive interventions of the state to take from the hardworking many and concentrate it in the hands of the few.
That line sums up this entire argument right there. The claim is simple. Policies are being sold to the public as fairness, sustainability, or protection, but the end result keeps looking the same. More power for government, more advantage for large institutions, and less opportunities for people who are actually working and trying to build a life, whether you agree with him or not. That idea that the system is moving wealth control upwards is exactly why this message is resonating with so many people right now.
On the other hand, there's another alternative, which is to give people back more economic, personal, and political freedom through a smaller state and more powerful individuals, families, and communities. And that's the side I'm on.
Well, you're focusing on the narrow economic part of it, but I think what Francis is alluding to is there's
the same thing, though.
Well, is it though? Because there's a cultural and ideological dimension to this as well, because say the policy of net zero, which is just economic suicide. It's the same thing. Tell us.
Exactly the same thing, because it's being used as a pretext to concentrate money and power in the hands of the state. It is just the latest of the many pretexts that are used to justify taking away everybody's money and giving it to a treasured, privileged few, green grifters. The corporatism of saying, well, we're going to tax all of the energy and we're going to block the resources, and then we're going to take the money and give it to the government, who's going to dole it out to all of these corporate insiders who claim that they are doing something for the environment. When in fact, if you look very carefully, it's all BS. In fact, they have no problem directing much of that money to China, which is opening 2 coal fire plants a week. So it has nothing to do with the environment. It is entirely a pretext to take from the working classes and give to a small group of insiders through the mechanism of the state. So whether you're talking about the net zero fraud or massive government redistribution schemes or just an overall growth in the bureaucracy, it is all, or even on the speech side, it's all about concentrating power and money in the hands of fewer and fewer people while taking away the opportunities of the people who actually do the work.
That was a fascinating conversation because it goes way beyond one politician or one country. It gets a bigger question a lot of people are asking right now. Are ordinary people actually being represented anymore, or are they just being managed? Let me know in the comments whether you think he's right about working class government power and the direction of the West. And if you want more long form breakdowns like this, make sure you subscribe to Straight Fire Politics.